understand that these things are important steps in getting people off the streets and into housing and into a position where they can reconnect with their lives, because we've seen it done. I've seen so many people in this community who have moved from chronic homelessness back to very happy, fulfilling, and full lives. It can be done. And frankly, I don't think we tell the stories enough. And so you being here today, sharing your story about where you are, I look forward to the next time I see you, and you can tell the story about where you are now, which I hope is in a warm, dry, safe, and adequate housing situation for you and your son. And I want to make sure. Yep. So let's get you hooked up. Who from my team is in the back? Can you make sure you connect before the end of the evening? Thank you.
There's questions in the back too, along the wall. You can make sure.
My name is Jennifer, and I just met Sarah not that long ago. And I'm sorry. No, take them. Okay, so maybe we'll connect later after the talk. I just want to quickly just run through my story. I grew up as a homeless youth, going to Portland Public Schools. My parents both were on drugs. They were both, my dad was put through the justice system, and then my mom had never been arrested for the crimes that she committed. No one believed me as a child. So I want to piggyback on the woman who stood up earlier, said something about it starts in middle school, because that's when I was criminalized in middle school, because I was crying in my classroom, and a security officer decided that it was time for me to no longer be there. Thank goodness that I had a head on my shoulders and I was educated, which goes back to her point of having an education where I was able to come out of that. I grew up in Northeast Portland, plenty of gangs. Bloods, Crips behind my yard, shooting. I was a traumatized child. So what I decided to do, and which other people decided to do too with their children, is educate them to be social with each other, to treat each other better. To treat each other better and do social change. We sit here, we talk about the homeless. Some of the homeless out there don't even want to get off of the street. Some of them are comfortable where they're at. I don't know that percentage. I don't know if you guys have actually engaged with a homeless person, but I took it upon myself to go ask about 30 homeless people, what brought you here to the street? Why did you choose to do this? Some were, actually from prominent families that owned a lot of properties here in the state of Oregon. And they're just like, well, they said they were gonna let me stay on their couch, but I didn't do what I was supposed to do to achieve what I needed to do. So now I'm living here on the street, and now I have health problems. So then it just surprises me how we're not engaged with each other, and I think social change and us actually engaging with each other would be very helpful, besides just asking you, Ted, and to our police officers, help us. But what you could do, and what I got from when I went through a DV situation from DA Sook, was like, hey, this is how you could be, this is a way you could change your life. And I don't see Officer Brown here tonight. He used to be a Southeast Precinct officer. I want to say thank you to him, because he saved me from gun violence. I could have been dead, but everybody comes into your life for certain reasons, and I just want people just to understand to stop pitting against each other and let's all work with each other, including our police officers, or if we don't feel comfortable with the cops, let's work with each other to get these guns, get these drugs, and get everybody just engaged and help each other out. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, could we get just a real quick question, maybe 30 seconds, a minute? I'm going to pass it around 2 or 3 people. Yeah, go ahead.
The back.
In the back. Show me a hand in the back. Victoria?
Hi, my name is Victoria, and to the mother, the woman there in all black, I want to salute her for what she is doing and trying to do, and also to acknowledge the other woman who just spoke. The problem that I have regarding homelessness and all the stuff that comes with it is that you guys have seemed to forget about the people who live in homes, who have worked hard to live there, who are being stressed, traumatically stressed. Every day I drive down my street and wonder, is this person still there? Officer Jordan, I don't know if she's here, but she can tell you about a certain individual that we've been dealing with for the last 4 weeks to 2 months. Nothing's gonna happen with them. They can do anything that they want to do, except for maybe commit a felony, break into your house or break into your garage, maybe. But as far as the needles, the stealing, the theft, everything that goes on, it's like, well, they're homeless. What can you expect? What can you do? Stealing of the cars, they're homeless. What can you expect? What can you do? They litter, they throw their trash out. They go into neighborhoods where there's not homelessness, and for whatever their reasons are, and want to set up another homeless camp. I'm asking you, what about our stress level? Our stress level. We see people, how many fires do they have the Fire Bureau gone to in the last 2 years? On the news it reports 1,200 fires in homeless camp. Every night, and I understand that they're cold and they have to have a fire. Every night there's 2 fires going on in the neighborhood. I'm stressed. I have anxiety. I've had a 100-pound statue taken off my porch. Every time I set cushions out, they're stolen. And when you call, what can you do? Here, file the police report online. There's this man, he's beating up his girlfriend. This is going on, that's going on. He's shooting up. The needle's still in the arm. Is he alive? I don't know. I'm not going to go up and check his pulse. But because of the limitation of officers, they can't do it. And then when officers arrive, of course the crime is over with, right? What can they do? So I'm saying to you, when you talk about trauma and being traumatized, hey, not playing the race card, I'm 64 years old, grew up in a segregated neighborhood, and if you haven't noticed, I am African American. And from now until the day I die, I'm going to experience bigotry, racism, and prejudice. But does that give me a reason to go out and do as they're doing? So I like to separate people who really need services and want services versus the ones who don't want it. And we all know in terms of drug addiction, if you have a program open up your door, it doesn't mean they're going to walk through there and take that. They have to be ready. And then how many times do they relapse? And in the meantime, when they do relapse, or before they get into treatment or whatever's happening, they go to the neighborhood, hold us hostage, and victimize us, and they steal and do everything else to support their habit and to make our life miserable, a living hell.
Robert,
No, I just wanted to acknowledge your comment. Thank you very much for saying that, because I think there's a perception that either, and I know this isn't what you're saying, that we turn a blind eye, and that is not by any means the case. I want to point out, and a lot of you know this, that we are but one part of the criminal justice system. And I've said this before, we can come, we can make arrests, we can come citations, but it doesn't abate the problem. We cite them, they're still there. We make an arrest, they may be released, or there may not be jail space, right? And they may not even get the services that they need. I appreciate hearing the support behind that comment, because publicly we are often criticized about over-policing the homeless population. And then we also get criticized for not doing enough. And I think it's important to stress that there can be a balance, but there is also a need to maintain order around these things, because they lend to livability issues that we're talking about and discussing here. So I want to acknowledge that, and I think this is the first step, because there are other people in the room that also realize that we're not solely the answer to this, but there are communities that expect something to be done. So I just wanted to publicly thank you for saying that.
If I could just piggyback on the comment as well, because your concern was, it's well-founded and it's well-stated, and I actually hear that a lot. People say, well, I hear you saying you're going to provide treatment. I hear you say you're going to work hard on mental health services. I hear you say you're going to provide affordable housing. I hear you say you're going to provide job training. Well, what about me? What about my family? And what about our safety? And what about the livability in our community? What about access to our parks? And what about people who are littering or doing drugs or leaving needles in places where our kids can see them or find them or step on them? And I want you to understand this, if you understand anything about the approach that I'm trying to lead here in the community, and that it is a comprehensive approach, because all of these things are true. On one hand, we need a compassionate approach to the crisis that has been in the making for years, which has led to homelessness. And it's a crisis that has been led by growth, by a lack of housing infrastructure, by economic changes in our economy where people at the bottom are increasingly finding themselves farther and farther behind the curve in terms of being able to afford to put a decent roof over their head. We are now experiencing a crisis around addiction because our nation and our state and our community were late to acknowledge and own and address that addiction crisis. We still have not addressed the mental health crisis in our community, nor have we made the investments, put the infrastructure in place, or even developed a plan for having comprehensive, on-demand mental health treatment in our community. And on top of that, we have a policing crisis. I'll call it a public safety crisis because over a period of many, many years, we defunded policing in our community. And now we find ourselves behind the curve. So we need both a compassionate response to homelessness. We need to provide the services that will get people off the street and keep them off the street. And yes, they are expensive, but that's what it takes to get people off the street. But that does not mean we will abandon our community principles, our community standards, or forego enforcement of the law. We will do those things too. So it is a combination of compassion, of resources, and accountability. And you will find that across the front, we've made investments in all of those areas. Treatment, mental health, prevention programs, housing programs, public safety programs, including the police officer programs we've talked about, the foot patrols we've put into place, the new rangers that we've put into the parks to be able to accommodate some of the concerns people have about safety, the new livability programs we've put into place, trash, needle collection, biohazards, the new hygiene stations that we just funded in the last budget process. We have to do all of the above because homelessness is really not one condition. It is a manifestation of years of neglect in many different areas, as well as social changes that have converged into this perfect storm to create this West Coast homeless crisis that we're currently confronting. Sometimes it seems overwhelming, but I'll tell you, when you break it down into these different parts, all of a sudden you start to see in every one of these areas, we can make progress, and there are specific programs that we can put into place, and strategies that we can implement, and specific targeted investments that we can make that will begin to show results. And that's what we're going to do. It's not going to happen quickly, and it's not going to be cheap, but it's what we need to do. It is the dog work of doing what we need to do to address what is obviously the largest social crisis facing our society, which is this humanitarian crisis of homelessness. But we as a community, we are big enough and we are good enough to solve it, and we will.
Mr. Mayor, Chief Outlaw, thank you for your addressing this lady's concerns, and I really appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that you're an eloquent speaker, and I'm hearing a lot of rhetoric that sounds like campaign. And I came up here today to express the same as she did, that these programs, although they sound really nice, and they're probably the right way to go, they aren't working yet. I still have motorhomes on my street. I still have bags full of garbage and needles. I still hear gunshots every night from my house. And what I came here to tell you, it all sounds really pretty. Come walk down my street with me. Come walk down my street. Come walk down the bike path with me. come walk down. You guys, come walk through our neighborhood. Come hear what we hear. Come see what we see. Walk by the drug houses. I mean, yes, we have a homeless problem, and yes, it's a mental health and it's a drug problem. But all this flowery language isn't getting us anywhere. We need more action. We need efficiency in our bureaus to get this work actually done. I want to see work done. I'm a builder. I build homes. And I work all over this city, and I see the way other communities are treated, and then I come home to lents.
Just in the interest of time,
Let me just quickly respond to the gentleman, because I agree with you. The problem